Che gli pare? 30 secondi. 30 secondi.
Tira il
Sofia.
pistro. Questo si chiama pistro che c'è in mano.
Sei pronta?
Mamma, mi togli i capelli davanti?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fuoco!
No.
Sei inciampata? No. No.
C'è la corda che non
C'è la corrente.
No. Ci deve dare un colpo forte, ci deve dare. E siccome non è buona, deve dare un colpo forte.
No,
Io l'ho sempre detto.
E dai, fateci una qualcuno. Dai.
Oh, senti i campani.
Sì,
Siamo in
infatti.
ritardo però,
Mamma, mamma.
Non abbiamo.
Cambio della guardia.
Eccola.
Okay, so there is that. Welcome everyone to my little stream. Today we're going to have a nice talk.
Het is
It's going to be a
prachtig
nice
weer.
talk.
Dus
If I
ga
can
naar het
get this
terras
bloody thing
en-
to stop.
Not way.
Oh yes. That's me using YouTube and all that. I tried to stop it, but I couldn't. We're going to have a nice. I started this video with a video Michael Keller showed us about the power of feminism and why we should have more women in the armed forces. Obviously, I can't help myself making a dig, so that's the dig. Have fun at it. But today we're going to talk about the Australian version of Tommy Robinson. Is he though? Well, at the end of the stream, you make up your own mind. For this, I have invited Anne Tak to come and join us because this is a subject that she often talks about. And I have to admit that I have listened to her talk, but I haven't really realized. I think realization is the best thing. Because on the internet, everyone knows Tommy Robinson. Well, on YouTube anyway. But how many people have heard of Blair Cottrell? And in all fairness, I have to agree with Anne Tak that this deserves a lot of attention because the similarities are glaring. Anyway, having said what I have said, Anne Tak, take it away.
All right. Well, it is kind of similar to Tommy Robinson's in a lot of ways. Blair, by speaking out against mass immigration, in particular radical Islam, and pointing out the negative things that was bringing into society and the impacts it was having. He organised, he's quite a personable young lad, very well spoken, and he has his arguments very well together. So he quite quickly gathered a very large following. He had well over 100,000 people following him at one stage before his group, United Patriots Front, was shut down. He's since actually been booted off Facebook altogether. He's classed as one of the dangerous people you may have heard about, like Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson and such like, who've been permanently banned from Facebook for being considered dangerous individuals. So he's been depersoned absolutely everywhere. He's banned off Twitter, banned off YouTube. People are being banned off Facebook for showing support for him. And he's just actually had we've got 4 major banks in Australia, and he's just had one of those big 4 banks shut down his bank account. I think it closes completely in about a week's time. He's actually just a carpenter who saw that there were things in his local area. He's from Melbourne, which is in Victoria. Anyone who's heard about safe schools or things like that going on in Australian schools would have heard. It's the socialist state.
Yeah.
And they've actually just started a very similar to what the UK has, with a race hate reporting line for people to, which is a brand new thing they've just brought in, so people can report racism wherever they see it, and it can be looked into.
That's
So
the
it's
thing,
no
though.
longer.
I love it when people say you can report racism wherever you see it.
Yes.
I have yet to find a clear and concise description of racism.
Well, that's a very good point. Now, he's currently fighting a hate speech criminal conviction for making a Facebook post, and this was actually a planned stunt that he and some friends pulled in the lead up to a protest against a mega mosque being built down in Victoria. And they went to the local council chambers, the council being the local representatives who were approving this mosque, and they had a man they'd made out of pillows and some food dye, and they staged a mock beheading in front of the council offices in October 2015. A full year later, they decided they were going to charge them for making a video with the intention of inciting serious contempt or revulsion or ridicule of Muslims, which is a charge they could only really face down in Victoria because they're the only ones with that law. Although the ACT has something very similar now.
Okay.
So basically they did this theatre performance with this really dodgy dummy, which is always they use as a plastic knife, food colouring. And they were also done for vandalising the footpath, by the way, because of the food dye, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think beheading is still a legal punishment in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a few Islamic type countries that still have that as a punishment, as an approved punishment. So they were literally just they were beheading an unbeliever basically in front of the council chambers. They weren't dressed very well like Muslims. Like they kind of had a bit of a head. What do they call their head scarf thing?
When is the last time Australia spoke out against the death penalty in Saudi Arabia by beheading?
They haven't. In fact, they're only just starting to acknowledge the fact that gays are killed in some Islamic countries still. So,
which also is true for Saudi Arabia.
My daughter was actually told that she had ignorant, bigoted parents because she brought up the fact that there were still gays being punished in some Islamic states and things. So
most Islamic states, not some. Most.
Just remember, facts are racist.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to, not get any of us in trouble. Basically,
we're free speeches here.
Yeah. It took them a full 12 months to decide to actually charge them with anything. They then went to court and they were found guilty of having vilified Muslims. And it was the first time they made it a criminal charge under the Victorian Racial and Religious Tolerance Act over here.
Blasphemy!
Yeah, basically, we do. And the ACT also has a blasphemy law. Doesn't seem to work when Christians try to use it, but
no, funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Equality.
So they tried to appeal. Yeah. They tried to appeal and initially they lost that appeal. They all ended up with a $2,000 fine from that, but they wanted to, and I guess this was to the prosecution decided because the video was clearly intended to create serious contempt towards Muslims.
What serious contempt?
I don't know. He was showing one of their one of their potential practices if Sharia was enacted. Apparently, that is serious contempt. Even though you especially at the time, you could go on YouTube or Facebook and see videos of them beheading people. But
Well, I have to admit, yes, there were plenty of videos of ISIS beheading people, but then
Yeah.
people will start claiming how ISIS isn't Islam and all that.
Not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
the purest form of Islam, surely.
No. This is an argument I am 100% willing to completely forego. Let's pretend ISIS is not Islam. I'm 100% okay with that.
I'm not.
But no,
Sorry, I am not.
I don't care.
Good.
Saudi Arabia obviously is.
Then you still
Yeah,
got the
Saudi
fact they
Arabia
say
can
they should.
talk. They're
they-
bloody
you-
Wahhabis.
Yeah, very true. But you can still say it because they're supposed to emulate Muhammad as the perfect man. So
Yeah, I know. But they are terrorists and all that, so let's pretend they're not.
let's pretend they're not.
Then we
Well,
still
they're
have
still
countries-
hanging people. They're still
Yeah.
hanging people from things and stuff in Saudi Arabia.
But we-
So
Yeah, we have people dying from cane strikes in Pakistan and Indonesia. We
Yeah,
have people
yeah.
being stoned to death in several Muslim countries. We have people being beheaded in several Muslim countries. I don't need ISIS to be the example here.
yeah, well, I don't think that they would have done any better if they'd stoned the dummy to death either. So
Oh,
probably would have been worse because it would have been projectiles that they were using, not a plastic knife.
yeah, and you have to dig them in first because
Yeah.
only their head is allowed to be.
Yeah,
floating
there's
around.
that too. Yes, yes.
Oh yeah, that's probably property damage or something like that.
Yes, that would definitely be property damage
No,
digging up
it's,
the council garden.
Yeah, there you have it. So yeah, beheading is.
But just remember, it is the mantra of the left.
It is indeed.
That
And it was basically they were
Whatever
playing
you
up for the
accuse
camera.
anyone of,
Yeah.
no, not all. They don't. We don't agree with that.
Yeah,
You're
that's
going to
why-
condemn it then? Why should I? I don't agree with that. So you don't condemn it then.
Well, they did actually say that, you know how you brought up ISIS? They did actually say that they were picking up the acts of criminals and purporting that to arouse hatred to Muslims in general.
that's
So
why I don't
that
want
was
to use
that was the contempt.
and that's why I don't want to use ISIS. Whether ISIS is Islamic or not is beyond reproach according to what I've known, but let's pretend they're not Muslim. Okay. Let's pretend ISIS is 100% not Islamic. Then we have plenty of other examples that no one will contest, like Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Oh, trust me, they will always contest it because facts are racist.
Well,
It's true.
yes, but where they could argue that ISIS are just a bunch of terrorists, etc., etc., etc. Well, you can't say the same thing of a country with a government that people seem to support.
Well,
It's very wishy-washy. All the reasoning they've given so far, as you said, how do you define hate speech?
Yeah.
Well,
you
or
don't.
hateful acts.
It's a bogus concept.
The basic whole premise of this is it's been recognized for a long time that in international law and domestic law, in relation to racial vilification, notice they say racial vilification there, that hate speech of whatever kind ought not be justified or just covered by saying it's an example of free speech, or in this case, symbolic speech, because they weren't talking, they were acting.
But here's the thing. Every leftist who decries so-called hate speech against Muslims commits far more hate speech against other groups.
Well, they're even creating hate speech against Muslims, funny enough.
No, but what I'm saying is they literally go around saying everything's the fault of white men. And
Yes,
that's not hate speech and vilification, excuse me?
Well,
I mean,
someone will
literally
manage-
is.
if we could get, our judicial system is very left leaning for the most part, unfortunately.
Oh, the Western. I didn't realise this because
We
there
have
was,
they actually refer to the Victorian courts, a lot of the people working at making these decisions as activists.
well, no,
judiciary.
okay.
Judiciary.
So Anita, in the last couple of years, when they've been studying the political leanings of academics, mostly in the United States, and it surprised me because you obviously all the grievance studies, the not so much soft sciences as not even sciences. Okay, you expect them to be massively regressive. Okay.
Yes.
Subjects. Well, I'll go. 3 subjects that are overwhelmingly regressive are English, history, and the law.
Yeah.
So they've been churning out indoctrinated judges for decades.
Yep.
And now we're seeing those indoctrinated lawyers become judges. And then now we're seeing activist judges. And the problem is they've all been educated in the same line of reasoning.
Yep.
The same lie of reasoning, you mean?
Sorry?
The same lie of reasoning.
Well, whatever. It is a lie, but it's a line as well. The same mental processes, the same ways of thinking, the same arguments and rationales of this, that, and the other.
The same stupidities.
Yeah. And so, if you have any intellectual diversity, then different judges will be able to at least critique the views, the judgments of other judges, but not if they all think exactly the same way and come to the same conclusions based on the same faulty reasoning.
Well, this is kind of funny because this is something that, a lot of people have pointed out, but the last famous person that I can remember pointing this out was Jordan Peterson, when he basically said, oh, well, if I know one point, I know nearly all of your points.
Yeah.
Because once I know that you are in favor of this, then I can also ascertain that you stand for this, this, and this. He did say that, I think it was in that GQ interview, where the woman said, well, no, and then basically proven him right.
Oh, that woman was vile, beyond vile. Yes. The literal, yes, I know I'm privileged, so you're going to give up. No, why? Because I don't want to. That was her literal argument.
Yeah. But everyone else needs to because they're privileged. Okay.
Everyone needs to because they don't have the vagina privilege, but I'm going to luxuriate in my unearned privilege. And she acknowledged that by her own reasoning, she had unearned privilege, and she was damned if she was going to give it up. Yeah. And has the temerity to then criticize anyone else for exactly the same stance.
But let's be honest, she was a leftist. She holds all the proper talking points, therefore you can't hold it against her, can you?
Yes. And what's more, this is the journalist from so-called Gentleman's Quarterly.
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan Mark II, you mean?
Well, if you think of a lot of our reporters as, especially the ones that write on this, most of them are from the ABC. That's like your BBC. It's the government-run establishment.
Fascist left, yeah.
Couldn't be any more left. Even the government admits they are too left-leaning and biased. So
basically, you've got the Australian broadcasting communists and the British broadcasting communists, right?
And the Canadian broadcasting communists.
Yeah.
They're even worse. Actually, I saw a really great photo of the Brazilian leader refusing to shake Justin Trudeau's hand.
Marvelous.
It was. He literally turns his away. Yeah, he turns his back on him. Yes. Yes.
I didn't know what I was looking at, but it just looked good.
Yes.
It must have been on your Facebook because I looked
probably
down your
was.
Facebook.
Yeah, that will horrify you, some of the people.
But this is kind of like on one of those G20 meets where they all start to single.
Oh my! You've just been called a lefty.
Who?
Mycroft Holmes in the.
Oh, cool! Wow, I don't get accused of that very often.
A mind, an Aussie lefty. All right. No, but I can remember that the same thing happened with Trudeau in where was it? In Hamburg.
I'm going to say if you come from Melbourne, throw a rock and you're bound to hit an Aussie lefty.
But the same thing happened with Trudeau in Germany when he tried to talk with the international leaders, and basically everyone shunned him as well.
Yeah.
Well, not on official moments, obviously, but when they're just milling around with one another. I can't imagine how Canada can be pleased with their
Well, they're not.
Prime Minister.
They're not. Buyer's remorse. Canada, France,
Very much so.
etc. You elected these people. People, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Mycroft, can I get you to come into my court case and tell them that I'm a lefty, please? I'd really like that.
Yes. Though he's American, and the American versions of left and right don't quite correlate to anyone else's.
Ludicrous. Wasn't the Irish Prime Minister gay?
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't that one of her redeeming features?
Is
not only woman, but she's also gay.
No. Male Prime Minister who was gay.
I wasn't. Oh, I was thinking about the Scottish one then.
No, you're talking about. She's not a Prime Minister. She's the First Minister, which is not quite the same thing. Whereas the Taoiseach, sorry for the pronunciation error there, ludicrous, is the Irish Prime Minister, but the First Minister is just because the Scottish Parliament is only devolved and not sovereign. You can't quite equate it.
Okay, I won't then. I'm sorry, Scotland. I gave you something you don't have.
I think most Scots wish they didn't.
I think there are a lot of Scots that are like, you know what? Yeah, maybe one day there was a time that we didn't like England, but I think we got over it by now. Then again, there are still Scots that didn't get over it.
Yeah, but you see, Nicola Sturgeon, you keep hearing all these rumours, like I heard just yesterday, that what they call them, the squad, those 4 idiots in Congress, are actually right-wing plants.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, but you hear this because someone is so obviously bad for their own cause that it is an immediate leap of thought to think maybe they're agents of the other side. Well, Nicola Sturgeon is an agent of the Unionists.
In all fairness, it makes sense to think that AOC or what's the well, I forgot the one with the towel.
That Omar one.
Yes. It's probably it's very believable that they are plants, but I'm not quite sure how they can be right-wing plants because they are Democrats.
No. You're right-wing if they don't like you. Nothing to do with what you believe. It's only to do with whether they don't like you. That's whether you're right-wing or not.
Pelosi is now a racist and all.
Yeah, obviously.
It's kind of funny though, but we getting sidetracked, so let's come back to this one later. Back to Mr. Cottrell, because I'm trying to figure out what it is that he's done that's so incredibly heinous. I mean,
he motivated people to speak out about things that they could see happening. And we started, there were all those terrorist attacks going on. There were more and more. The immigration we were all being told we needed to all open our borders, bring in more people, don't worry about vetting them, bring them home when they do the wrong thing, all the rest of it. And ordinary Australians were being hurt by it. And, you've just got to look at there was a rise of home invasions and violent attacks just for no reason and things that just weren't the norm. You know, all of
Did
a
you
sudden
get
you
the-
couldn't walk home at night anymore. All of a sudden, you know, you couldn't let your kids go riding down the park
Yeah.
by themselves anymore. And
Did you get the knife crime and acid attacks we got from the same immigrant population?
well, I'm not in Melbourne, but no, we didn't get the we haven't we haven't had the acid attacks yet. Touch wood. There has been, as I said, there's been a lot of violent break-ins and things like that, robberies in stores and carjackings in car parks and on streets. People pulled off bikes and just beaten up for the hell of it. They don't even take their mobile phone half the time or anything like that. So
Well, they're bored.
he was literally just saying, look, we can't just bring these people in and let them, you know, where there's not going to be anywhere for normal white Australians. We're being told we're racist. We're being told we just need to pay out more money. Our own elderly are suffering. We've got more homeless than we've ever seen in this country before that we apparently can't help, but we can bring in all these refugees. We can pay 200 million to keep them. You know, they get better medical care than ordinary Aussies do in the detention centres and the offshore detention centres. So,
well, and the other thing is if you want to help people, it is far more cost effective to help them where they come from than to import them where they are useless, don't fit in, and cannot fix the problems.
We've seen a lot of Wahhabism coming into the universities and things for a while there. We also have seen a lot of Islamic construction, you call them zones, villages being full villages being built, and giant mosques, you know, that will fit 1,000 people when there might be 20 Muslims living in 100-mile radius.
Oh, right, So it's like,
Yeah, and if anyone who actually looks into Islam knows that generally speaking, a mosque is not just a place of prayer. It's a place of education. It's a place of law. It's a place of justice. It's everything. So, that's all he ever really did. And his vilification was, they keep calling it a mannequin because it makes it sound more person-shaped. This was not a very well-made dummy.
It doesn't matter.
Took the head off.
It doesn't matter. Every 5th of July, the British people symbolically burn a Catholic.
Well, that's what I've been saying from the start. This was a street theatre protest, and we have vegans going out smearing themselves with blood, carrying little dead lambs and things around into shops and stuff like that. All of that's fine, but this was
Britain,
somehow different.
We've been burning a Catholic for 400 years.
Yeah. So
every 5th of July, 5th of November. I mean, I'm sorry, but if it's clearly symbolic, it can be a cultural practice.
Yeah. So anyway, he went to court again on Tuesday, and the state aren't very happy because the Human Rights Commission have had to step in and say this could be a breach of Blair's human rights, his personal expression, political expression, which is about the only protected speech we actually have here. But yet again, it was an excuse for them to actually lie about it. When the title says he failed to get his thing removed to the Supreme Court, the trial hasn't even started yet. There hasn't been any decisions. They wanted to get it to remove to the Supreme Court because it's a more serious sitting. And the lower courts, you're more likely to get an activist sitting up in front of you making the decision, basically.
For now.
For now. So, as you said, News Corp edited the image you see on that article, so that he looks like he's in front of a swastika, and it's the same image they've been using for years.
Can you share that one for the rest of the stream?
I don't think I have that one up. I have the.
You can share it. It's on your Discord mod.
I just closed my Discord because it kept bleeping.
Oh, that's what was bleeping.
Yes. And I couldn't find out which channel was bleeping. I thought I had silenced them all, but
give me a moment to see if I can
find it
on my
there's no posts on yours. I can share it if you like, but
That's
it's a bit tiddly. Oh, hang on. Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, sure, go.
I need to press
That's a
this
very
thing.
nicely photoshopped picture.
Which one?
The picture of Blair with the swastika behind him.
Where am I?
Oh, there we go. I've got it if you want me to do it.
Go on. I don't care who does it. Do it.
Oh, bugger.
Okay, Anya, go ahead. There we go.
There we go. Is that up?
Yeah, it's up. And you'll broadcast it.
Beautiful.
That
I'm on the wrong screen.
Yeah, the rest of you is up as well. I hope you don't mind then.
There, I've got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
too
you've got
late
it now.
now, mate.
Yeah, so that's it. So convicted racist. He's never been convicted of racism. Okay, it was inciting contempt that the first one was that they got the $2,000 fines for.
How is
that they're now trying to jail him for.
contempt a criminal act? Ooh,
It makes people feel bad.
Yeah. I know.
Someone might act and give someone a mean look as they walk past.
As opposed to all the political groups.
He incited people to give a mean look, which is even less of any meaning, in all fairness.
Yes, indeed.
No, I mean, it is beyond satire to say, oh, serious contempt. I mean, huh?
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
The whole left has contempt for their own society.
It's just as random as saying you're that's hate speech. It's like, what do you mean it's hate speech?
No, but it's worse than hate speech. It's like all the politics is based on contempt for other people's
other
positions.
party. Yes, that's a good point.
Thus, contempt is a fundamental part of our society. You have contempt for things you don't agree with, and the people who want to do the things you don't agree with, by definition.
Yeah, and I'm sure it works the same in probably at least in the UK, but instead of them applying the law, they interpret the law.
Well, that's what they did with Count Dankler. It's what they've just done with Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, yeah.
And
we also have this case precedence thing. So the law may say you go to jail for XYZ, but the case law will say unless this and unless this and unless this, and next thing you know, you'll either get a giant sentence for next to nothing, or you will get a tiny sentence for something heinous.
Yes.
So
I still can't get over the inciting contempt.
Yeah.
I mean,
serious contempt. Not just contempt, serious contempt.
Yeah, serious contempt. I really don't like Pepsi Cola. Am I in trouble?
The exact charge is publishing a video to Facebook with intent to incite ridicule of a religious class of people, namely Muslims.
Okay.
You can't laugh at things either. You can't incite people to laugh.
So
what you're saying is every flat Earth video is now illegal, because every video about mocking those who believe in the flat Earth for being the utter morons they are is just the same as this.
Disrespecting their beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's never been any reference to race or hatred anywhere in the conviction, either the original one or the one they're fighting.
Here's my little take on this. So he beheaded a dummy outside of a mosque.
Yep. No, outside of a council building. The mosque hadn't been built. Oh. They were protesting against the mosque. The council is like your local government that decides what buildings can go up, where the roads go, fix the water,
I understand that. So I'm going to assume, and I know that's not nice of me, but I'm going to assume that this mosque was being paid for by Wahhabi.
I couldn't tell you that, but very good chance, as there's been an awful lot of that sort of thing.
Well,
and the few Muslims I know that aren't like opposed to talking to ordinary people about these subjects and don't scream Islamophobia, they aren't asking for giant mosques or hate speech laws or any
No,
of that.
the whole idea.
They don't want Sharia. They don't want,
Yeah.
So.
But
the only thing is, you said, hang on a second, Mod, please. You said that, and in fact, you said there were only like 20 people in a large area. So it's clear they didn't get the money for the mosque from the community.
From the community, no, that's right.
So obviously, it was somebody with a large political axe to grind paying for the mosque.
Yep.
The mosques are mostly being paid by Saudi Arabia, which is a fact.
Saudi Arabia puts a lot of money into the universities as well.
Yep, this is all known. So could it at all be possible that Blair Cottrell wasn't displaying what Islam is like, but he was displaying what Saudi Arabia is like? Because beheading, as we mentioned earlier, is completely allowed.
I believe they sort of specified it as radical Islam, but so.
No, I don't. This, if they indeed said this is radical Islam, then I totally agree with them being convicted. There's nothing about that at all because it's pretty mainstream.
I know, but
mainstream.
That's still not cause for conviction.
He's not radical enough. Lock him up.
No. Let's be honest. Beheading is not something from radical Islam.
I know, but it still doesn't make calling it radical Islam an offence.
Oh, I don't think that's the offence. The offence is calling it radical.
That's what I said.
Yeah. It's not radical at all. It's mainstream.
Yeah. So
they didn't actually talk at all during their demonstration, other than to shout "Allahu Akbar,"
which also is rather concise. Let's be honest.
It is, yeah.
That does happen.
We've heard that. We've heard that here before things have happened. So I'm sure they've probably heard it in other places where there's been.
Well, I mean, the sad fact
motivated activities.
The sad fact is that there is a blatant judicial bias against native populations in favour of the religion of pieces.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I think that Hungary basically said that all citizens should be allowed to bear arms again. And I think they already made it law, but I'm not sure if they already did or that it's still in progress. That all citizens should be allowed to be armed, so that whenever anyone ever fears an Allahu Akbar, they can shoot back. It's the government who said that. So
wow.
And Germans, in case there's too many Germans suddenly get an urge to borrow another part of another country.
I had heard that there was somewhere where that people were being told, don't wait for the police, just shoot them. Which is just like, wow.
I did not know that one.
And
I
don't remember.
Where I want to make very clear that I am very much against any form of violence, I do, however, definitely support every human right to defend your life.
And defend your family and defend your property.
I mean, I live in the Netherlands where it isn't allowed, and if you are under attack and you kill your attacker, you actually go to jail.
The same thing happens here.
But I don't mind. I can understand.
I'm sure a lot of people would pay that price. It's the same with you. You can have a gun license here and you can have a gun in your home, but if you use that gun to defend yourself or your family, then they will take your gun away from you.
Yeah, there's a problem.
And you will not get it back.
But okay, that's.
So you're being asked questions in the chat, Anita. Mycroft Holmes has brought up arson and stalking charges that he has a record.
He does, from about when he was like 21 or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Is this kind of the same thing on how Tommy Robinson was accused for physically assaulting another person?
Well, he did. It was a Nazi. Tommy Robinson actually has a conviction for attacking Nazis. but they
No,
call
well-
him a Nazi.
But I mean, it is a conviction for physical violence, which is something they now always bring up when they talk about him.
And this
So-
is the only thing they can actually bring up on Blair is the fact that he was a dickhead when he was young, and he did the wrong thing. I don't know the full story because I've only been involved in politics the last 3.5 years, so it's not up on the whole story. And there are a couple of versions of it, but he doesn't deny that he's had this arson charge. He apparently burnt down a garden shed. Is that right, Mycroft? Seeing
A
as you know,
whole garden shed.
So he's,
Yeah,
a,
garden
he's a
shed.
serious criminal.
and
Hell-bent on
he was
damaging garden tools.
obsessed to some degree with a woman he was with, and yeah, obviously he caused her some degree of fear and apprehension.
Yeah, but the problem is I'm sorry, as an MRA, I do not trust any accusations of stalking.
Well, it's a
Because-
long time ago, and it wasn't a crime in which people were hurt, as far as I'm aware.
Aggravated burglary charge.
Well, I hadn't heard of the aggravated burglary. Did he break in to get his stuff back out of the house or something? Or
Yeah, because again, you have to look at all the bullshit.
yeah, which is why I sort of, I put all of those things with a grain of salt. I mean, they're quite happy for us to bring terrorists and things back over and say we need to forgive them and help them and rehabilitate them.
If you've
So
served your
It should
time,
be applied equally, yeah.
if you served your time. Plus, the other thing is, none of those particular offences have anything to do with the charges he's currently being accused of. Seven days in jail. It wasn't a very serious or very aggravated burglary then. I'm just saying.
He was probably, by the looks of it, if he was testosterone trafficking, then he was probably having a roid rage incident as much as anything else.
Possessing a controlled weapon. In the United Kingdom, that could include a spoon or a potato peeler. And I am not joking.
Here it could be a Shanghai. That's funny. He was being a dick. Yeah, that doesn't surprise
I'm
me.
100%
Young people are dicks, though, aren't they? Like, show me a young bloke who hasn't been a dick.
John?
Me, I was 30 when I was 15. Trust me. I was always boring.
It's like
No, I did
like
get drunk a lot and do some strange things, but never violent.
it's like young girls having crazy emotional breakdowns. It's
Yeah, but
yeah. Well, and Mycroft, you can confirm this perhaps. Apparently, the reason there are some who try and say that he's an ASIO shill is because he went to jail for that little period. So they all want to say that when he was in jail, ASIO have given him a talking to, and now he's one of their informants or something.
Yo.
So, yeah, Australian Security Intelligence Organization, our CIA,
Oh, right.
MI6, whatever you want to call them. So, part of the Five Eyes that are spying on us all.
Sorry, can I just answer Michael Keller? He's asked whether it is true that it is illegal for old grannies taking their knitting needles to the park. As my mother, who is not only a granny but a great granny, is a obsessive knitter and often takes her knitting and thus knitting needles with her wherever she goes, she's never had problems. That's all I can say on that score.
So it may not be true.
I think it's bollocks.
But if a well-abled young body would bring the knitting needles,
Yeah, if young men suddenly took up knitting, you just wait for it to be banned very quickly.
I remember that one time, this was an advisory talk a lawyer gave to a group of students. That it's perfectly fine to have a baseball bat in your car, just as long as you have a baseball glove and a baseball close to it. So if ever you go out and you bring your baseball bat, make sure to bring those other two implements as well.
So don't arrange to meet your mates where somebody else brings the ball and you don't need a catcher's mitt because then you are. I mean, seriously, in the UK, and I'm going back to the 80s now. You could be stopped and searched by the police, and if you had tools in your boot, they could arrest you for having offensive weapons.
Wow.
This is how insane the British law has always been. As I tried to mention earlier, the British right has been authoritarian forever. It's just that the right now calls itself left.
Nice. Well, we're now stretching our guilt by association all the way around the world, in case you hadn't noticed. So.
I saw a heading on the BBC's website today, and there's a English rugby player of Samoan extraction called Vinipula, and he apologized to his teammate for the distress caused by his support for Israel Folau.
Really?
In other words, Craven Coward has just thrown his mate under the bus.
Guys, I'm sorry, I'm AFK for a small second, but the two of you keep it going.
Keep it going. Okay, fair enough.
Hang on, in fact, I could probably bring that up.
The Folau thing's almost, but not quite as worrying as the Blair thing. The Blair thing worries me because it is literally, they want to jail him for a performance.
Yeah.
Piece of performance
It's
art.
all wrong think and literally silencing dissenting opinions.
Yes, the beheading of the doll was a violation of that act. It's
Yes, did they get consent? Though apparently only men need to ask consent.
I mean,
we
have some of the most ridiculous things going on here at the moment, Mycroft. Like, there's a journalist who's being sued at the moment because she'd already been sued for defamation by an ex-army trans person who was running for the Greens in Queensland. And because she kept speaking on transgender issues, this person has decided the very fact that she's still speaking about trans people, not this person that sued her, but trans issues, that is an ongoing defamation of this individual's person, and is trying to get this reporter prevented from speaking about trans issues at all.
Why is that doing that? I need that. That's why. Yeah. In a sec. There you go. Vinipula. Saracens number 8 regrets impact of Folau comments on teammates.
But it's amazing that,
and they still call them anti-gay comments, and they weren't anti-gay comments; they were pro-Christian comments.
But they weren't anti-anything. I agree, they weren't anti-gay because they were just as much about anti-non-Christian.
And he didn't say they had to go to hell at all.
Yeah.
No, he said God decide.
Yeah.
But the worst part is, even if he did,
he should be entitled to have that opinion.
And so as it says, warned by the Rugby Football Union for his support. I mean, for crying out loud, if this isn't proof of the death of free speech, I really don't know what it is.
Well, they attacked Folau's wife for simply retweeting or reposting his fundraiser link. Because she's a netballer. She plays for the New Zealand netball team. Netball? I think it's netball.
Yeah, there's a netball World Cup going on with that.
Yeah, so she got attacked simply for supporting her husband. Not even.
I know. How dare she? How very dare she?
Sleeping now, but
a high-level breach of RA's player code of conduct.
But it wasn't a breach of the code of conduct. There's nothing in there about.
Of course not. This is all. Oh, sorry, it's all bullshit.
Want we hebben de andere paracetamol, maar dat is erna. Ik denk dat de zetpillen nog steeds blijven.
Have you read the ACT Discrimination Act by any chance, Mycroft Holmes? Did you know there's a bit in the start that says if they apply the law equally to all people, then it's not fair?
Yeah, I bet. You've just described feminist equality in a nutshell.
Very black and white.
Yep.
So, I was a bit shocked when I saw that. It's sort of like, great.
I'm not, because it's been apparent for decades. When I first heard of the early 1980s, the concept that women can't be sexist, and I'm like, that is the most bigoted thing I've ever heard.
That is kind of the same thing, but this is written into the the discrimination act,
I know,
the law
yeah.
that they operate under.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing, though. I mean, the way it's bigotry of low expectations, in a way. It's soft bigotry of low expectation. I think.
I don't agree. I think it's actually about creating a new superior class. It's not about bigotry of low expectations. It's about elevation of people based inherently by how they are born.
Oh, aye, that's basically what it is. But the underlying idea is that you do certain things because, well, I mean, they can't help it.
No. You see, they don't say they can't help it. What they say is this: women can't do any of these things.
Yeah, but when they do, it's not their fault.
And when they do these things, it's okay. They don't say it's not their fault. They say it's okay.
No, actually, they do say that it's not their fault.
No, they say it's okay. Women don't really hurt men when they are violent to them. Women groping men in public isn't a problem.
I like the line that says the act explicitly criminalizes public behavior, not personal beliefs.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Which is the opposite of all of the identity politics.
So you can think anything you want, you can believe anything you want, you just cannot act on it.
Yeah, that's how the law should be.
So,
but that's not how they implement the law. They implement the law on.
Can't even discuss it.
You are a white man, therefore you are guilty.
It's kind of like what Sargon made a video about, today, I think, yesterday. Why is something racist? Because if you need to ask, you're a racist.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thanks for this.
Yeah, I brought it up, Mycroft. That's where I read that little piece about the act explicitly criminalizes public behavior, not personal beliefs.
I think he wants us to share it, because I can click it all I want, but I need to share it, otherwise it won't make a difference.
Let me just turn my sharing off.
Okay, I'll share it, Mycroft. Come on, don't be such a, how do you call it?
Nag?
Thank you. I didn't say it, he did it.
I did?
I meant to say, oh, fucking hell. Presenting to the rest of the world the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act of 2001.
Well, Wikipedia's version. I mean, you know.
Well, it's better than that, or it's worse than that?
Well, it's probably worse than that, but
makes sense.
We have a lot of ambiguous language in our laws, which means they can interpret it however they damn well please.
But that's the funny thing about laws. The more you have, the less you have.
Yeah. This is what I was saying the other day, though, isn't it? About how if you have all these laws, they just get so complicated that the judges can essentially interpret things any way they want because they're so complicated. No one else can tell whether they're even right or not. And you can argue a case any which way you want. If the laws cover literally every eventuality, you then just choose how to frame it so that you get the outcome you want.
There's one thing that I do find funny, though, in the first few lines. The act criminalizes...
No. Sorry, Mycroft Holmes just said basically he pissed off the Muslims, right? No, he didn't. The Muslims didn't make the complaint against him. The state did.
Oh, no, that sounds like Bankula.
No Islamists made a complaint against him, against them at the start of this. It was the police who chose to push charges. So
okay, so here's my guess.
whether
The
they were acting
Muslims saw the act and said, "Oh, that's good. Yes, we're all in favour of that."
yeah, and hence
But
they've been trying to change a few things around to make it stick. So
no, it does sound a lot like Dankula and Tommy Robinson.
yeah,
No, but especially Dankula, because no one
Well, in this part, yeah, definitely this part.
made a complaint. The police actually went out searching for someone to be offended.
Yep. But let's go back to the Religious and Racial Tolerance Act of 2001, and this is the one thing that I like most. The act criminalizes racist graffiti, racist posters, racist stickers, racist comments made in publications, including the internet and email,
Oh, for fuck's sake.
statements at the meeting.
oh, that's a private meeting, by the way. That can be a private meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean,
The authoritarian is
well.
here. This is not an acceptable law under Western's Enlightenment values.
No, I mean, we talking here online with people looking at us. You could say this is public because everyone could be here.
Yeah.
But email is directed to individuals, so it's on average individual communication.
No, but we've had people in the UK, like there was a student in Exeter and he was kicked out of the university for opinions expressed in a private Facebook group.
Oh yeah, in Germany people have gone to jail because of that.
Yeah.
In my case, I was told, like I know mine's only civil, but in mine I was told if I had a newspaper in my lounge room on my coffee table or a book, and someone came in and saw that and took offence at it, they could claim I had defamed them.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't have to be, so I don't have to endorse it in any way, shape or form. The very fact that I have allowed it to be seen by someone else on my property, it used to be there had to be something that was saying that you endorsed it in some way, like, a flashing light or a pointing finger or a, hey, look at this. But now you don't even have to do that.
No. But it's worse because could you not be going, isn't this terrible? And then they would still say you're sharing it.
Well, on mine, I'd actually said that the conspiracy stuff they were saying about the guy that sued me, I'd actually been saying that the conspiracy evidence was not evidence and had been concentrating on the actual court case, not the controversy behind the court case that I was following. And that was the fact that I had clearly said, oh, well, it's a bit of a strange religion, this cult, but each to their own if it's legal, and comments like that. And I had made public comments warning people not to listen to the negative stuff about this group and this person. Mm-hmm. I still got sued successfully as having had a link on my page that he didn't like, even though I'd clearly not been endorsing that type of material.
But seriously, here too. Inciting serious contempt of Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
How is this a legal term?
In our there's one called 18C. It's a Commonwealth one, and in that it says to cause offence.
Yeah, and that's bullshit
but you can't
too.
cause offence. Offence is taken.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyone can take offence at literally anything. It is impossible, as Jordan Peterson said to Kathy Newman, it is impossible to think without causing offence or without the risk of causing offence, because you do not know what other people will find offensive. And you could say the most banal thing in your own worldview.
What does it say about Danny Nalia? Now, I have actually met Danny Nalia. He's a very lovely man.
Sorry.
They accused of making fun of Muslim beliefs. That's not what they were doing. They had a meeting, a private meeting for Christians, and they were telling people Danny Nalia had actually lived in a couple of different Islamic countries as a Christian before he came to Australia, and he was telling people his experience and his knowledge of Islam and Christianity and that sort of thing. That's what he was sued for in his vilification of Muslims lawsuit. So, and they did kind of eventually win. They ended up settling out of court. So,
But
but yeah, that just goes to show you, you know, like saying they made fun of him. That's just not right.
No, but I mean, causing offense.
Mm.
That's linguistically impossible.
I don't make the damn rules. We've actually been protesting 18C ever since they brought it in. And it actually, we have this cartoonist called Bill Leakes. If you go look up his work, he did some really awesome political cartoons and stuff. They pretty much killed him, taking him to court with that law over a picture he did of a cartoon he did about the situation in Aboriginal communities. Which isn't very good, I might add. There's a lot of problems caused both by themselves and by the system that they're living under since white people landed and settled / invaded, depending on your view. Then there's been a couple of uni students under 18C. They went to go into a computer room that was about empty. Turns out it was actually for Indigenous students. And an Indigenous teacher told them to get out because it was for Indigenous students only, even though there were plenty of spare computers. And when one of them went home, he posted that they hadn't been allowed in the Indigenous computer room because they were white. Isn't that segregation?
Yeah, it's racist.
Which it is.
And they ended up having their lives just about destroyed. One of them was going to be a teacher, but because of all the news articles calling him a racist against Aboriginals, he's like, the first story out there is the one people believe. This is going to follow me for the rest of my life now. And it's true. It's, you know, or unless he wants to spend his entire teaching career going, oh, but eventually we won that one. But they did a lot of things wrong there too. They didn't tell the guys that they had a complaint against them. They didn't give them notice to go to hearings and things like that.
Yeah, we've gone in the Western world. We've gone overboard with being
considerate of other people's feelings.
Yeah, yeah. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, we are forcing people to self-censor because if they don't, they are a racist or a blah 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 or
no, because they haven't finished it. We're waiting to find out if Australians can be jailed for offending someone, but we've got to wait till next month.
Yeah, because they hate it if the English do anything they don't.
Yeah, I think it is exactly a bit like that. Actually, it's.
Oh no, they did. Oh, we're behind. I mean, Canada's done this. Britain has done this. We're getting
drones now. Yeah. Like it's not good enough to just have cameras. Victorians have been told to get used to the sight of police drones in the sky. So,
well, being SJW Central, you think they'd be happy?
Yeah, they should be.
At the other side, though, I mean, if you like, I mean, not saying you should, but if you like shooting bow and arrow, they provide you with target practice.
Yes, yes, please.
Well,
no, I mean, so no, he hasn't been sentenced yet. The state's a bit unhappy because the Human Rights Commission came in and said, hey, we might actually be breaching his human rights here. Which the state really doesn't want that decision.
No, because they don't want to consider him capable of having rights, because they don't want to consider him being capable of being a human.
Yeah, there's that too. Yes, yes.
No, I mean, he's
an evil, large white male.
It's what it all comes down to. They dehumanize, and then having dehumanized, suddenly everything's fair game.
Yeah.
It's that's the entirety of leftist tactics at this point.
Yes, I don't know how well I've done bringing attention to it, Mycroft. I'm very distracted by Australia's laws at the moment. We have so much going on. It is just ridiculous.
But it's important, to my mind, that we network and don't just deal with these things in isolation, because it is a wider pattern.
Yeah, this is also why I wanted to do this stream, and maybe we do a follow-up someday. because, as I said, nearly everyone knows about Tommy Robinson.
Yep. Yep.
Very few people know of Blair Cottrell. Fewer.
And everyone's aware that people are being arrested in the UK for mean tweets and saying the wrong thing. They don't realise how close we are behind them, I don't think. As I said, like the lady who made the video I shared, she actually wrote a letter to the guy the video was about and told him she was posting it 3 years before I clicked share. And he never did. 5,000 people viewed it, hundreds of people shared it. He never did a thing. And then I clicked share. And as someone said, you click share on things and the weirdos come out of the woodworks. So.
It's the same.
But as I say, it's all about, it's not what you do, it's who you are.
Didn't we have the same thing in England, though, that a police officer went to the door of a person because he shared or liked a Twitter post?
Yeah, and they told him to check his thinking.
Check your bloody hell.
The problem with some of the like there's ones like Gary Awesome has spoken a bit about Blair and I think Suit Yourself, although his computer's dead at the moment.
Yeah,
but
we know because
Alicia's careful about what he will and won't talk about, and that's not to say anything bad about Bearing. He does really important.
Yeah, but he's almost died in terms of content for longest time.
Because he actually has some legal knowledge, I think, just from some of the videos he's made. I think he has some actual legal training, and I actually think he might be shit scared of what's going on at the moment, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it is, but this is how they get people. They don't get you with facts. They don't get you with arguments. They get you with terror.
That's right. Yes.
But there's something seriously wrong. And I've mentioned this a few times before, and I'll probably mention this in the future. The powers that be are doing everything they can to drive our society into civil unrest.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
And, the worst part is, and I know I've mentioned this a few times, and I know this has nothing to do with Islam, or this has nothing to do with anything like that. This is the left. This is how fascism got started. This is how Nazis got started. This is how the Second World War got started.
Yeah.
And we're basically doing all the steps all over again.
Blair's been depersoned. He can't bank. You know, what can you do without digital banking?
Well, it's what they do.
It's like he's a tradie, so he'll survive on the cash economy. Do you know what I mean? But you know,
this is how they take your voice away.
That as well.
Yeah.
It's how they take your voice away.
Gab, I don't think he can go anywhere on the internet except for Gab these days. So.
And they've already managed to sandbox that as ignore everyone on there because they're all the far right extremists.
Yes, and they've done much the same thing with Minds. Minds is just signed onto something with Google or something, and it's meant that they've had to change how they feed their tags and things out.
I really liked Cocoscope, but Cocoscope also has removed
the political tag
content because of fear of losing their monetization as well. And I mean, I can be angry on Cocoscope, but in all fairness, I understand them.
I understand all of it. Doesn't mean you have to like it.
Yeah, I'm angry that we are now in a situation where this is completely acceptable. Yeah.
So, Mycroft Holmes, if you go looking into this story at all, take anything you read in a mainstream media story with a grain of salt. The left absolutely hate him. Yeah.
Can I suggest? Sorry, can I just make a suggestion?
Updating on Facebook, and he has been updating on Gab. So,
sorry, can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah.
This might sound a little off, but I don't care because I'll say what I think. We know that women can now get away with things men can't.
Very true.
We need women to start taking the lead.
Yes.
You with me?
It hasn't helped some of us here, or not in the
no, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. I
They
do. Yeah.
find it so much easier to attack men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the problem we have is if men are doing stuff, then they are defenseless.
Yes.
It's just a thought. I'm, throwing it out there.
Yep. No, you've got it right there. Although we do have quite a few women who are already
Oh, there's
in
lots
trouble.
of women.
People posting, Mama got sued for $100,000 by a trans activist for comments people put on one of her posts in response to something she wrote. And
I mean, we've got lots of women out there, but I'm merely making a statement of tactics that, and someone was talking about Antifa, how they do it. They'll send a woman out, goad the other side, and then the minute the other side responds, the men will swarm around the woman to protect her, and it's
that's
like
their excuse.
it's the other side understand the tactic.
Yes, they do. Our guys are too manly to be shoving us in front.
No, but it's not a question of shoving you. It's a question of
I mean
working together.
I posted a video of an Antifa group confronting some old conservatives, and the guys were literally shoving the female Antifa to the front.
Yeah,
As soon as it got physical.
As soon as they get physical, they first start attacking. Usually it's the women that start attacking within Antifa. It's the women that start the fights. Then if there's not really any fighting back, the men go up front and take over the fighting. But as soon as you start hitting back, the women come back up the front because you hit a woman. You don't hit a woman. You're not going to hit a woman.
Yes.
Stuff like this, I hate to say it, this is how fascism got started.
Yeah.
It is, yes. I'm seriously concerned that we are either going to end up under the slowly but surely developing, and it's getting faster and faster, communist rule that we're global communism. I think we're being pushed into.
Well, no,
unless the Chinese
enough,
take over first. We have a real serious issue with China at the moment. It is a serious financial and physical threat.
They own a lot of debt in a lot of countries. But no, funnily enough, I heard
they literally have us surrounded.
Who was it? Was it Alicia in her last video? She was saying that there's a globalist agenda, but it's not a communist agenda. It's not a socialist agenda. They're using the socialist communists as useful idiots, but that isn't the agenda. It's a very capitalist corporatist agenda.
Is the honey to get us to accept totalitarianism.
Yeah. But no, and because the people who support those ideologies are very good tools to be deployed. You can get them to do all kinds of stupid things, and they're incapable of coherent thought. Perfect cannon fodder.
Yes, indeed.
And the very fact that they are acting in the interests of what they claim to oppose just proves the fact.
Yeah, there's so much hypocrisy. It's hard to argue with them sometimes.
Hard?
They're shaking your head going, what? How does that make sense? So I think Facebook's trying to make me vegan. I honestly think, because they keep putting vegan stuff in my feed. But they are so racist, and not just against white people. They were being racist against Indigenous people because apparently they're too stupid to know when they're committing animal cruelty if they've been taught the wrong thing by the white man. It's like, do you people listen to yourselves? Seriously.
No, they don't.
The so-called racists look absolutely positively reasonable in there.
So there's this view I've been trying to propound about ideology and its role, and how it exists outside of the rational sphere. And I heard a Jordan Peterson quote, which essentially says the same thing. And the problem is, it's all about the person. So they are a good person because they have labeled themselves X.
Yeah.
Therefore, anything they say or think is by default good,
Yes.
which
Anyone
essentially
is evil.
completely eliminates any self-reflection, any self-awareness. And so they will come out with all this shit. How many people have you heard of attacking black people racists? Willie, they're usually leftists against conservatives.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's usually the anti-racists.
No, they're not anti-racists.
I know they're not anti-racist, but that's what
They
call
are the racists. And this is the point. And I've been trying to point out they are the racists.
Yeah, but
Maybe we just need to change the definition of everything. From now on, racist means pro everybody doing their own thing, and anti-racist means you want to control everyone.
No,
but that's the same thing that anti-fascists are the biggest fascists out there.
Well, that's why we stop. Words are important.
They
Don't
are.
call them antifa. They are neo-fascists. Don't call them anti-racist. Call them racist bigots.
Well, actually, I would say don't call them anti-fa. Call them what they are: Bolsheviks.
No, neo-fa.
No, Bolsheviks.
Neo-fa.
I disagree. Bolsheviks.
I know you disagree, but a lot of them identify as anarchists. Call them neo-fa.
They identify as anarcho-communists. Come on.
They don't deny their identity.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the semantics of what an anarchist is.
Well, but
originally, anarchy and communism were mutually exclusive.
They still are.
Yes, and then you just said, but they're anarcho-communists, which is not mutually exclusive.
It's not me saying that. That's them saying that.
Not all.
Yeah, hashtag not all, but that's an easy argument to make.
And the point is they are neo-fascists.
Well.
And given that they call themselves anti-fascists, calling them neo-fascists is poignant.
Maybe.
I understand where you're going with that one.
And it's important. Words matter.
See how they dress?
Words matter. You know, and you say, oh, well, they're actually, it doesn't matter. The point is, their whole game is weaponizing terminology. You fight that by weaponizing terminology against them.
No, that's true. Fair is fair, that's true. But yeah.
I think you've got a fan attacking Mycroft Holmes.
I don't know. I think you probably want to have an argument. No, I think he's actually quite interested in the news. Have you been?
He called you. He said Aussie accents on women are hot. Is what he said.
Yeah, I'm not as young as I sound. I've
seen a picture. She is, but anyway, I'm old, so what do I know? Sorry.
I'll not fall into the trap of asking your age. Then, all right.
Well,
everyone's younger than me. Just remember that.
Also, so I'm not too young, and I was well in.
Well, I did try and point this out when he called you a chick, that you are a mother.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, can you be a chick if you're a mother?
Can you be a chick if you're not?
I'm over the official hill, so there you go. That's
the official hill, not the grassy knoll.
As well, bloody hell! I'm so old.
Yeah.
And yes, I know it's in her name. She's actually a little bit younger than I am.
Do you know the left couldn't figure out my name? Which I thought was pretty funny because it's Katrina. Like, obviously.
Every woman is a chick, like me. No, not
actually, no. Every mother is a chick.
Huh?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, a chick is an offspring. Therefore, every daughter's a chick.
No, chick is short for chicken.
Well,
no, chick. It is not. A chick.
Daughter once.
A chick is its own term for the young of avian species.
Well,
The chicks are what are in the nest before they have plumage and can
This
fly.
is what Davey came for.
Yeah.
they can't figure out humor either.
It's
And
not a question of the hen and the egg.
no.
No, you say because it's the chicken and the egg.
But a hen's just an old chick, so you know we're still
Yeah,
going around.
yeah, but the chick is in English. You say a bird is a chick when they haven't fledged yet. Therefore, they are officially young and helpless and need feeding.
Yes, true. True.
Yes, I hate that term, bird. I've always hated that term for women, bird. Don't know why.
It's better than being called an old duck.
Well, I've been called.
Or an old fart.
I've been called not just duck, but ducks.
Oh,
In the north of England, there are all kind of regional expressions of vague endearment to strangers. So you'd go into a shop and somebody was address you as ducks. This has nothing to do with either person's sex. This is again where the feminists get it wrong. They go, "Oh, he called me dear. How condescending." When you have heard a ex-lorry driver call another lorry driver love over the radio, unironically, you will understand it's just idiom.
Yeah, it's just a way to communicate.
It's just the terminology people use, and they don't even think about it. And trust me, one man talking to another in such a context is not being condescending as in the way feminists claim it is.
yeah.
Yeah. But feminists are full of themselves, so.
No, they're just full of shit.
Well, that too. Isn't that the same thing?
Well, in a rather recursive way, yes.
Yeah, there you have it then. Oh, sorry. And I need a fast bio break again. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'll be right back, guys.
You're right. Yes, that is a typical Aussie greeting. Believe it or not, does get used quite a bit, particularly by the actual working class
People.
folk.
It is a luxury, a privilege, so to speak, to be able to be offended.
It is, yes.
This is what the feminists, which is the ultimate in bourgeois ideologies and always has been, cannot factor into their whole belief system.
Good one, lad. I reckon you'd be short on facts anyway.
Well, he's a leprechaun and they're not known for their heightism.
Very true. Get some. What is that? A bio? What is a bio break? Was he going to the bathroom?
Yeah, a call of nature.
I have a problem with my well, let's say body. Let's keep it clean here.
No.
So I think you're already, this one won't get monetized anyway. Oh, they don't give you monetization either.
No, they took it away a long time ago.
Yeah.
And since they took away my monetization,
I speak on your outrageous monetization.
The pictures I posted in your Discord earlier, I stole from Vivi, who's just come into your chat.
Oh, right.
Hello,
Vivi.
Vivi Schnell.
Vivi is one of those names you don't know whether it's a he or a she.
It's a she.
No, I'm saying that you don't know because it can also be a he.
Yeah. This one's definitely a she.
In all fairness, I don't care. I've lived with the moniker as follows. Online, everyone's a dude.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not a moniker. It's a motto. But anyway. A moniker's a name.
Imagine how many people wouldn't get catfished if they just went with that theory.
Yeah.
Catfished?
Oh, well, you should have jumped in if I got anything wrong, Viv. I tried to tell him about Blair's thing.
No, it's not spelt like that, Davey.
Oh gosh, we're
But
gonna have
catfish,
how many ways can you spell Viv?
When I joined Facebook and I put that I was a widow, I got a lot of women suddenly interested in me.
Yeah, yeah.
I was strangely untempted.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
It's like, yeah, right, honest.
I was telling them that Blair was hot last week, Vivi.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures, and I asked if Anna Tax got her smelling salts.
All good. He's my hero. Well, always remember that heroes become the villain of the story eventually. That's the
Yeah, they're doing their best.
Oh, did you hear the latest? Okay, so Alan Turing is a legend in computing. Okay, he's a genius, and he was prime in breaking the Enigma code repeatedly during World War II, which helped shorten the war
a bit. Yeah.
She's gonna start having a fluff attack now in the comments.
So he's now appeared on one of the British banknotes, and somebody sent a tweet saying, "Typical white heterosexual male, except he is famous for being chemically castrated for being gay when gay was illegal."
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that famous for it.
They made a movie about him. Well, not about him, about the whole code thingy.
Yeah. Code breakers or whatever.
And they had a problem whether they should show him as gay or not. I remember reading that.
Okay.
Which he was, but it's not important to the story because the important thing is what he did. But it is who he was. So
I wouldn't have used either of those words to describe John, but anyway.
No, I am conservative. Not a conservative, but I am conservative. I think there is so much about the modern society that is worth preserving. And thus conserving. And thus
something we can all agree on in this chat anyway.
Well, yeah.
But a Trotskyist is not a Marxist, and he's certainly not a communist.
Well, he's not a communist, I'll grant you that. But how is Trotsky not a Marxist?
No, a Trotskyist is not a Marxist. I didn't say a Trotskyist. Trotsky wasn't a Marxist. I said Trotskyist isn't a Marxist.
Yeah, how not?
I don't know. Normally when males are castrated, it calms them down. He's definitely not calm, Michael.
Me? No.
That's a completely different line of thinking all of a sudden. This is going very well today. I have to admit, though, Anatak, I do appreciate you joining us. It's a very fun stream today.
Yes.
Well, I hope I didn't waffle on too much. I tried to sort of be organized. I always try to be organized for my own streams too. You've seen how well they go.
I have seen a few of them, yes.
But I think I got the main points across, and I think I managed to bring up everything the media always lies about. So
I think I've also saw a stream.
You mean everything? You've literally said everything tonight. Anything that can be said, because the media lies about literally anything and everything.
I haven't heard her say 42 once yet. And now everyone is quiet. No, but I mean, I think I saw one. I think it was one of your streams that you made with your phone.
it might have been.
And that was a dreadful thing to look at.
Yeah, it would have been. Oh, it might have been one of the shows I went to. Yeah, my new phone. I don't know what. Sometimes when I'm trying to stream with it, the camera flashes and carries on. It's really bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it always ends up really. Yeah, so I try not to use that. I use my poor PC, which I have to take slowly because otherwise it freezes on me.
and you've been kind enough to make me look into what was it, X-Fire?
XSplit.
XSplit. I have to look into that. Crap. Yeah, the thing is, when they're going to stop with the Hangout thingy and all that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I got XSplit because I thought they were getting rid of it. Like, I don't know, whenever it was I was on Gary Awesome's channel. So actually it's over 12 months ago. So
See, that's the thing. I always have people that are more famous than me here, people. Come on.
Yeah, and that is a good thing.
The only thing I'm famous for, the only reason I'm at all famous, if you want to call it that, is because I was part of the skywriting team and mine was the only name that got put on it because we knew we'd be attacked for it. And I was already being sued by that guy. So my name was about to be made public anyway. And boy, howdy did writing vote no in the sky upset the rainbow crowd. So all around the world. That's my only call to fame. And I went to a Straight Lives Matter rally before and spoke at one before there was one in America. So
yeah, but you do understand that to Americans, nothing exists till it happens in America.
Yeah, pretty much.
I always loved it that people, for example, completely off topic, but for example, America, I once had a talk with a guy driving cars, and I drive stick shift because Europe, everyone drives stick shift. And he was American, and he drove automatic, which is a great American invention, don't you know?
Yeah, nice to make you lazy and unable to actually.
I bet it's not American.
It's very much not American. It's Dutch, actually. It's from Duff. So I brought that up, and he was, no, that's not true. And I'm like, yeah, not that I care, but it kind of is. So then he looked it up, and he was like, fuck you. Great American invention. Pizza.
It's funny because the Tubes did a song.
I'm
proud to be American.
Too.
I'm proud to be American. They list all these American inventions, and most of them aren't American inventions.
America doesn't have a lot of inventions, to be honest.
Yeah,
in the era, people think that a lot, but most of it doesn't come from America at all. They made them big, but they didn't start them.
Yeah.
Since this summer, student drivers don't have to learn on manual shifting cars anymore.
That's terrible.
America invented the Dutch.
America invented the Dutch.
I don't think.
Yes, I'm going to probably be very mean here, but in this country, we have trees that are older than America.
Yeah,
that's true.
But completely off topic again, since this summer student drivers don't have to learn manual shifting cars anymore, this is a problem because it's actually dangerous to drive in a stick gear car if you're not trained to do it proper.
Yeah, at least in Australia, if you don't learn to drive in a manual, then you have to stay on your auto for so many years before you're allowed to go anywhere near a manual.
Yeah, and I still think, I mean, obviously I'm trained in manual, but I think, and in this country, you can either train manual or stick shift. If you train stick shift, you can
no,
stick
not
shift.
Manual or
automatic or stick shift. If you're trained stick shift, you can drive stick and automatic. But if you're trained automatic, then that's what you drive.
Yeah, that's the same here.
Yeah. Yeah,
and if you want to drive stick shift, then okay, take a few classes in it or something. It's not called classes, obviously, but because there's nothing more dangerous than driving behind someone, pulling up at a traffic light that just turned green, and he's going into his first gear, and he's going into his second gear, and yeah, stands still instantly because the car stalled, something like that.
Yeah, I occasionally drive an auto because it was my mother's, which is now my sister's car, and it's an auto. And when I first drive it, I'm perpetually trying to use a clutch. And then after a while, I get back in my car, which is a proper one. I mean, it's a manual. And I'm like, shit, what do I do then?
I've been driving. Auto for the last 1.5 years because my legs simply aren't working that well anymore. But I sometimes have the tendency when I'm at the traffic light. I've been driving this for more than a year now. I still sometimes have the tendency that when I'm at a traffic light to put it back in first gear. There is no first gear, but I still have that idea, and I'm like, oh yeah, right. So it's what you get used to, I guess.
Was it the US or Europe that came up with the EU? What a peculiar question.
I learned to drive when Ataris was still the thing.
When Ataris?
Yeah.
I learned to drive in an old Austin Mini.
Oh, there you go. Well, it was actually a Daihatsu hardtop that I learned to drive in, but he said he learnt shift in Need for Speed too. And there was, I learnt when the Atari was still a thing. It didn't have Need for Speed. It had, you know, Mario Brothers and Space Invaders and
other silly stuff like that.
Yep. Should have kept it all. It'd be worth a fortune now.
Yeah. Well, in all fairness, if you want, you can probably download a version for the PC.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, what I would say about gearing is if you live in a big country with wide open roads, I could understand the appeal of an automatic.
16
in a country like ours, where you can't go 3 yards without hitting traffic, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Actually, I would perfectly understand it the other way around, to be honest.
You don't want cruise control or autos on really long straight drives because you end up driving off the micro sleeping and driving off the road.
Well,
need to change gears and things. It actually helps maintain.
But if it's long and straight, you're not changing gear.
No, but you tend to be more.
I would say
about having a clutch and stuff.
I live in the Netherlands and traffic is pretty bad here. Not as bad as London, but pretty much worse than the rest of England. I have to admit, I'm pretty
much.
Sorry?
What do you mean pretty much? It's like
infinitely
worse. Not pretty much. It's like massively worse than the rest.
Anyway, the good thing about automatic is that I don't have to worry about gearing. It's just a question of braking and giving gas.
Yes.
So what you eat is another matter, mate.
There's always an esky half full of beer, and the other half of the beer is empty on the floor of the car, rolling underneath the brake pedal.
I'm sorry, but then you're just an idiot.
You just said all Australians are drunk on the road.
Anyway,
and we have long roads.
Going to go.
I think he's racially profiling you. I really do.
I think so. That's all right. I can handle that racial profile. There's worse ones. He's not accusing us of I don't know, trucks of peace or anything. So
no, but those road trains you have, they are something else.
They are indeed, yes. And those kangaroos don't bounce very well when you hit them.
Oh, did I tell you about the wallabies in Derbyshire?
No.
Okay, so I used to live in Derbyshire, and basically some wallabies escaped into the wild. Now, as you might expect, wallabies are not native to the Midlands of the United Kingdom. And people would say, I've seen giant rats.
They are kind of a bit like giant hopping rats.
Well,
and wallabies are quite small compared to kangaroos. So.
No, exactly. But it's just one of those quirks of escape wildlife that there are wild wallabies in Derbyshire.
I've driven a BW. BW. I've driven a B-dub. I haven't driven a road train. Oh yeah, I used to drive a truck for a landscape company. There you go. something else I've done.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
I was
oh, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was given the fiddly jobs that the boys didn't have the patience for. Like, when you had to get out a lot to move tree branches past your truck and stuff like that. So-
Isn't that what a machete's for?
Sorry?
Tree branches, isn't that what a machete's for?
No, you can't get a tree branch with a machete.
Old people get very angry if you chop at their trees or if you break their
Well, they
trees.
should watch where they put them.
They should watch where they want their wood dumped and their mulch dumped. That'd be helpful.
In all fairness, though, we should plant more trees.
They're ripping them out for the 5G stuff.
Yes,
5G?
amazing, isn't it? We
Because it
should
interferes
plant
with the
more
5G.
trees.
Yeah.
What for 5G?
Trees interfere with the 5G signal, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, that 5G. You mean the? Yeah, I've heard nothing good about 5G.
Me
No.
neither.
It rots your brain or something.
Well,
I honestly think that it does something. I don't know if it may just be stress and stuff, but we've got a lot of it
you're not,
going on
you're
around here.
not-
I feel fuzzy headed all the time.
you have 5G already in your area.
Yep. Switched on last November. We get to start using it sometime this year. I don't know what they're
Our
using it
active
for
rates
now.
have all been leveled.
That's terrible, to be honest. In the Netherlands, they had a few tests with 5Gs, and every time they tested in the near vicinity, birds dropped dead out of the air. Now,
Well,
they
I really
can't-
one of the reasons I really want to get out of Canberra. So
Sorry?
it's one of the reasons I really want to get out of Canberra.
Yeah.
Is the
They
5G.
can't say one-on-one causation correlation, but the fact that it happened a few times is it
Well,
gives
they
you
had
a reason to be reluctant.
Yeah, well, they ripped some radio receptor down outside. What not radio? The cell tower down outside a school because there was something like 7 kids all at once got rare brain tumors,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was the only thing they could think of that had caused it. Because
It's
you don't get clusters that big in.
it's rather alarming the way that they allow these things without testing.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's almost as if money speaks louder than the concerns about people's health.
Yeah.
Well, they've actually admitted that I think it's above 1.9 meters or something. If you're within so far of the pole, then there's some negative impact. But most people won't be at 1.9 meters, so they don't need to worry about it. So
That is bullshit
yeah,
as an explanation.
Yeah.
Because these things aren't binary.
no,
It's like it's not the effect
microwaves.
stop at 1.5 meters, they just diminish.
Yes, no, that's just that's their story. But they have there was I did notice, and I meant to go and try and find it and copy it for online, but where they'd done a heap of interviews with politicians and experts and whatnot, not a single one of them said it wasn't harmless, that it was harmless. They all sort of oh, well, testing's ongoing, and oh, they haven't found anything, but none of them said it's harmless, it will not hurt you.
Well, surely testing ongoing means do not deploy.
Mm.
You would think. When it comes to medical stuff, that's exactly what it means.
Actually, no, that's not true either, unfortunately.
Well, generally,
because there's plenty of medical stuff that we know isn't unsafe, but somehow it got pushed.
yeah,
Remember,
usually by feminists.
oh, usually, yes, that's a good. I mean, that's the one that I wanted to refer to. Remember the I think what's his name? Tilde made a bunch of videos about it.
Hey Viv, I actually wanted to go and take a photo, but autumn hit. I was walking home from a long way away and looked over the lake, and it actually looked like there was a circle of trees yellowing around the new 5G tower they'd put up near Belconnen. And most of the trees in Canberra, by the way, are natives. So they probably were eucalypts and they probably were yellowing, but I haven't had a chance to get to the tower to check if they were deciduous or if they were.
So you want to get out of Canberra because of the 5G?
Oh, and our ridiculous laws and the fact that I've made an enemy of the chief minister.
Well, no, sorry. I was leading somewhere with this. And it was like, and so Canberra's going to get 5G first, and it's full of all the politicians, and it fries their brains.
Yeah, and it's the only place, and it's got legal brothels everywhere, and marijuana's decriminalised.
5G. So what's wrong with 5G again?
Yeah, I suppose there's that.
Sorry.
Look at it that way, because they never stay here. They all fly off on their parliamentary allowances back home.
While telling you to watch your carbon footprint.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And telling us that only 1 in 2 households is going to be allowed to own a car within 10 years, and we won't. You'll have to actually buy your car space separate to your house in future.
It sounds a bit like how the Soviet Union was, with the elite having all their limousines and everyone else lucky to have a car.
Yep.
Yeah. And most of the parking will be for electric cars. And you should see their development plans for Canberra. It's really, they've already started building stack pack housing along the railway line. So
electric cars are polluting more in their creation till death period than diesel cars do.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you're not to mention that. Yeah, but CO2, man. CO2, we got to do something about CO2. Plant more fucking trees. Bloody hell. How hard can it be?
Coal fire.
Sorry?
Well, you talked about CO2. I'm sure it takes more CO2 to produce the electricity for an electric car than it does to actually directly power into a combustion engine, because that's how it works.
Yes, but that one I'm not going to touch, because let's be honest, you can create CO2 free electricity. 100%.
Nuclear, are we? That's why I said coal fired.
Coal-fired.
The new coal-fired power stations scrub the vast majority of the CO2 and etc's out before. It's only like water vapor, and I forget what the other thing is. We've got a little politician by the name of Malcolm Roberts. It's like his pet project, his pet subject is climate change and the whole scam that's been pushed, because he was actually some sort of chemistry dude that specialized in gases and stuff years before he got into politics. And he has some really great stuff on the whole global warming thing and different types of power stations and things like that. So
no, I mean, we know, for example, and this is something I like to
we pollute 0.3% or something of the contribute 0.3% or something of the global man-made CO2. So we're going to save the planet by knocking down all our coal power stations. We've knocked most of them down already. We've only got 6 left.
Some would think, is it a sign of an ulterior motive, and they're not being entirely honest?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people protesting, saying this is just wealth redistribution.
Indeed, Michael Keller. Switzerland signed a law that denies production of CO2 until 2050. They want a 0% CO2 production, aka in 2051, Swiss are no longer allowed to breathe. But this is unfortunately true.
Is that a real thing that Switzerland has done? I've never heard that before. How can they do that? How come we can't just say, yeah, no, we're not making any?
Yes.
Get that Paris target. Look.
Yeah, I mean, it makes as much sense as the bullshit they come out with.
But it's
redefine CO2 to mean something else, and that we can't possibly do it. Isn't that how leftist politics works?
Pretty much.
I will look that up after Michael. Yes.
But it's funny in a strange way, because we know how to combat CO2. And every program out there mentions all sorts of strange tactics and blah, 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 when we know the fucking answer.
All through the election. And if you watch,
methane is far worse than CO2.
Sorry?
if you watch, oh, sorry.
Go on.
I'm just saying, methane is far worse than CO2. And there's also all this dissolved methane at the bottom of the oceans, which could potentially rise at any point. So we've focused on CO2. My point being is it isn't the real threat methane is.
No, even if it were the real threat. That's the worst part. Let's pretend CO2 is the big baddie it is. This is what I always like to do. I mean, if someone comes with something and it's really useless or it's really not true, let's pretend it is true. Let's pretend CO2 is the biggest problem we have. Well, then we already have an answer. Everything green, not painted green, but every plant uses CO2.
The carbon bank.
Well, yeah. So we don't need to worry about CO2. If we think CO2 is a problem, plant more trees. Problem solved.
We had crazy climate protests all through our election period, which just finished, and they're still going on about the Adani coal mine actually in Queensland. But the funny thing is, this guy, Bob Brown and the Greens Party, drove petrol cars that they raised money for up to far north Queensland, came back down, demanding that we do solar and wind and get rid of all these dirty, filthy coal mines and whatnot.
But solar is...
They went to put a wind farm up near his home. He's protested against the wind farm.
Of NIMBY.
Yeah, it's not in my backyard. Oh, fuck
Yes,
you.
you can imagine how much everyone's giving the Greens party over that one. It's like,
Of course, but they are nothing but massive hypocrites. It's like all the immigration stuff. Oh, we must let immigrants in. Okay, you've got 3 houses. You can't live in them all at once. How about you open up some space? No, they can't live at my place.
we could save hundreds of tons of, we could reduce our usage of carbon by hundreds of thousands of tons a year just by not bringing migrants in, because, you know, every one of them is another 19 tons of CO2 a year, and plus all the infrastructure you've got to build to, you know, house them and look after them and whatnot. So I think that's a very good argument to slow immigration.
Well, but no, it's better to get them into the Western world, because when they're still in Africa or the Middle East,
they're only producing 3 ton or something. They produce a tiny amount when they're in the third world.
No. They use
the planet leaf in there.
No. They produce massive plastic pollution.
Well, yes, actually, they do.
Actually, roughly, what was it? I'm going to go on a limb, but I'm going to say 20 times more than the Western world combined is being produced by Africa, the Middle East, and Asia.
Well,
So
they should really clean up their thing, shouldn't they? Should really clean up their act.
Yeah, that's it. You would consider that an issue, but you know that they don't consider it an issue because brown people.
Well, see, because our 0.3% is going to change the entire direction of climate change. See, Australia is going to save the world.
Canada thinks that if you make people pay for the use of stuff, then people will use less, because if I make you pay more for CO2 production, you're going to drive your car less, or
we all know that is
work less.
We all know that.
I have a feeling they might not have thought that through that well.
If you run everywhere, you're going to just breathe harder, aren't you? So
We've had that here for decades. They wanted instituted a policy of increasing the government taxation on car fuels above the level of inflation every year. And the fundamental problem is it is an attack on the working poor, because the rich don't pay for their own car fuels. They get it all on expenses. So it's only the working poor who have no option, cannot possibly reduce their expenditure, but end up paying more and more of their income on fuel.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And of course it doesn't reduce car usage, because the vast majority of car usage is at rush hour when people are going to and from frigging work.
Australia, supposedly one of the best places to live in the world. We've had our elderly dying of the cold in recent years because they're too afraid to turn on their heaters in winter.
Mm.
They're being found dead or dying of hypothermia or going into hospital already suffering hypothermia.
Fuel poverty, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Why?
And these are people who've worked their whole lives. They actually...
Because they're not black.
Yeah. 80 years ago, Australia was in a position where we could pay our pensioners. You know, it was, the money was all there. It was all produced by the country. But we signed these treaties. We shifted our manufacturing and things, you know, made it all, opened everything up.
Helen Dale.
And tried to save the world by increasing our electricity.
Anna, have you heard of a Helen Dale?
Helen Dale? I don't think so.
Okay, so she's an Australian who's actually active in British politics.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Been talking with Sargon of Akkad, and she made the claim recently that Australia, because you have compulsory voting, is the only country in the world that has fully funded pensions.
They're not fully funded. Otherwise, we wouldn't be like $800 trillion in debt and going up every year. It used to be paid for without debt.
That's why I mentioned it, because she was claiming that you were fully funded.
No. That's why they force people to start paying 10% of their income from the time they start working into superannuation. So they can try and make us fund our own retirement instead of taking that thing that has been set up there since, you know, we sort of got things sorted for ourselves.
Yeah. No, as I say, I just wanted to clarify, because as an Australian, she made this claim, and it's interesting to hear a different view from someone who's still in Australia, as opposed to her who's been in the United Kingdom for a long time.
Well, I guess you could say they're self-funded in that they give them just enough to die on. So, you know, I mean, pensioners in homes, old people in homes are living on less than $7 food a day.
Mm.
And that literally cannot buy you a single fresh food item.
No, it's
elderly are dying in homes of malnutrition, and
people
elderly are dying in their own homes of the cold. So,
it's just that people spread these narratives.
Yeah, it used to be fully funded. It did once upon a time, John. It was fully funded. The government didn't have to borrow, beg, steal, or tax everybody to do that. It was because we owned most of the telecommunications in this country. The government owned most of the power production. The government, you know, owned all of that. It's now all been privatized. A lot of our power is actually owned by. There's one British billionaire owns half of the South Australian stuff.
Which is funny, because half of ours is owned by the French.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
This is another way we're all giving things away, you know, is all breaking up our sovereignty.
It's a lie, because she started our privatization, and it was obvious from the start that they were giving away state assets as bribes to the people who already could afford to buy into it. And so you expand the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Yes. So yes, it's one of those topics I've always wanted to look more at, but there's always so much you need to know about the topics you're already looking at. So.
And there's so much disinformation. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
I mean, It's a problem, and I don't have a problem with people privatizing things. That's
I do when they lie and they give them away.
I do when they sell over a third of our productive land to places like China and stuff.
yeah.
The problem was
straight overseas.
when they privatise things here, they would take some private company, some investment bank, and they would say, "Oh, go and privatise that," and then suddenly you find out that the investment bank wasn't supervised and somehow managed to make a shit ton of money out of it by diverting all the income to themselves and not the government. And it's like, you serious? You've not just given away assets, but you've given it to this company who are supposed to be acting on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they're planning to shut more things down in Victoria and whatnot, yet just about everything they're building is getting Chinese money thrown into it. And it's
Makes you wonder.
It does.
And again, we have that here with what they call PPI, private-public partnership. And the terms were like, well, private money will come in and build these things, but with the government underwriting it.
I was just about to say, but the government is going to provide over 50% of those funds, and they'll get a 2% return for the next 100 years.
Yeah,
it's like,
and they will underwrite any shortfall, and therefore that hardly encourages the feigned private efficiency that is the justification for the whole process.
Yeah.
And much the same with our transport things and things like that. Like we've just spent billions of, we've got a population of less than 500,000 in Canberra, and we've just spent billions of dollars building part of a light rail. We've still got 2 more sections of it to go. And this first section won't be paid for forever, like 20 or 30 years before.
Why even go for that? I mean,
it's just ridiculous.
Don't get me wrong. Europe has a normal train rail everywhere, but Europe is relatively small.
Yeah,
it's interconnecting. But if you look at a place like Australia,
you can't be running electric trains from here to Sydney.
You can't. and even for transports of goods, there are better ways to transport goods. I mean, those road trains you guys mentioned earlier. Well, they only exist in Australia. Yeah, but there's a reason why they exist there. Because it's a bloody good idea.
Yep. They aren't stuck on the same tracks that the trains are stuck on, which can only go from main centre to main centre.
Could you do the same in Europe? Why, hell no, you can't. It's way too crowded.
And we're also very, very flat, don't forget. Now, the road trains don't usually go anywhere where it's really mountainous and things like that.
Yeah, because you couldn't all the way.
Mainly west of the Great Dividing Range kind of thing, and mostly in Central Australia, you get that sort of thing. So, a lot of Europe just wouldn't be suitable.
None of it would be suitable.
The distances aren't big enough. That's the fact of it.
So, by the time you got started, the front of the truck would be there. Get up the speed.
Don't knock it. But no, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make any sense.
No, but anyway.
Anywho, we've been thoroughly off topic for quite a while now.
No, we're never off topic. It's just the topic is morphed.
Yes, the topic has morphed into something that we didn't want to talk about at the
What
beginning.
do you mean didn't want to talk about? How dare you, sir?
We wanted to talk about Blair Cottrell, which we did.
Yeah.
Which
It's like
actually
everything.
And
Sorry.
I really would like people to support Blair, but I'm more concerned about people, especially Australians, actually paying attention to what's going on in our courts, because there's some really scary stuff going on.
And everywhere. That's the point. Everywhere.
That's one of the biggest problem I have, and I'm seriously considering on remodeling my channel to go full free speech, or mostly because now I've done everything. I talk about Islam. I talk about everything. Fair enough. I'm not thinking about going full free speech because I noticed that, and this is not just in Australia. This is in England. This is in the UK. Sorry. This is in America. This is in the rest of Europe. Most people, they don't know what's going on or blatantly don't care what's going on because it doesn't affect them.
I don't think they don't care.
It's too late.
It's
Well,
they don't pay enough attention, and the bullshit arguments sound reasonable enough if you don't pay attention.
Yes, there's that
yeah,
too.
but
Yes.
I mean, I mean, I joked around about planting more trees. No, well, that's not really true. I didn't joke around about it, but it's not a big deal for me that we don't plant trees. I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about how, well, yeah, we need to carbon tax this and we need to carbon tax that because it's the only way to lower CO2. And I'm like, but wait a second. If you tax something, how is it lowering that something? Well, people will start using less of something and therefore create less CO2. Okay, if that were true, does that then mean people will drive cars less? Well, yeah, probably they will. Okay, so people can't go to work. Yeah, well, in that case, they might still pay more, but then that money goes somewhere. Okay, where does that money go to offset the CO2?
No, but that's not the point. The fundamental flaw, and I've seen this in lots of spheres,
I understand, John.
you have to provide an alternative. It's no good saying we will price this out of your reach. You've got to provide an alternative.
John,
That's how you stop people doing things,
please
not
finish. Okay. So basically, we started talking about that. And okay, so they tax it. Let's say they tax it and they do it with the best of intent. What are they going to do to stop CO2? Well, I don't know. Invention this, invention that, invention blah, blah, blah. And basically I said, okay, what if I told you there's already an answer? Yeah, no, well, yeah, then we are curious, but I don't believe there is one. Okay, what do plants breathe? And at that point in time, you could literally hear the quarter falling. Like, oh, right, yes. And I'm like, I mean, these are colleagues of mine. These are educated people. And they know plants breathe CO2. They know plants breathe, trees breathe CO2 and exhale oxygen. They know this. But when it comes to the CO2 problem solution, it has absolutely nothing to do with it because they don't get told about it and they simply stop thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's, again, and I keep saying this, and I've said this to you before. In the United Kingdom, they've been pushing planting forests for a long time. So what you're saying is only true parochially to you.
No, it's not.
Yes, because in the United Kingdom, they've been talking about planting forests.
Yes, it's nice that they're talking about it.
When I say talking, planning.
How long does it take to plant a tree?
Depends how hard the ground is and how big the tree is.
And who owns the land, etc.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Let's take every highway in existence in the UK. Plant a tree every 25 meters. Next to it, obviously, not on it. Every 25 meters. How many trees do you have right then and there?
A lot. A very good start.
We're not doing it, though.
No.
And there is the problem.
Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to share this one with you.
Go on then.
UK plans Northern Forest of 50 million trees.
Very well. Come on, share it then.
Yeah, I was just bringing it up. Patience, madam. Let's bring it on that one. Press. That's the map.
All right. How many trees? 50 million?
That's what it says.
Well,
Plan for 50 million new trees to repopulate one of the least wooded parts of the country and offer a natural escape from several cities in the north.
that's a great project.
As I said, this is not new in Britain. We've been talking about it. We have been
How
planning
long have
it.
you been talking about it?
Oh, for goodness sake.
No, this is
The point, no, because the point is you're saying no one's talking about it. When I say we are talking about it, you go, well, how long have you been talking about it? Oh, come on, stop shifting the goalposts.
Let me then rephrase it. People may be talking about it. They're not actually doing much. Now, if the UK is an exemption to that rule, that was very nice. In the Netherlands, we used to give farmers a subsidy for every 3-day plant. They obviously stopped doing that, and then they told farmers to remove some of the trees, which the farmers said, okay, because if we're not going to get paid for it, we're going to sell the wood. The whole idea that the environmental thing, the CO2 thing, is a problem, talk about manufactured crisis. It's a manufactured crisis.
Okay, first planted 28 years ago.
Well
The
done.
national forest, as it is called, is just beginning to mature. 28 years ago.
Oh, well done. So then the UK is... Well, if they're still doing it, though.
Well, there was a figure here from 2016.
Okay.
By spring 2016, 8.5 million trees had already been planted there, talking about somewhere or other.
Well, no, okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
And this was all my point, was merely to say that the arguments you're making are not universally true, because in the UK people have been dealing with this.
I'm sorry, I should have said not all.
Yeah, and I was just trying to say that there are people aware of this and there are people addressing it, because there's nothing worse than a kind of apocalyptic view. Oh, no one's dealing with this, and then you ignore when people are dealing with it.
Well, on average, there are not enough people dealing with it.
No, that's fine. That's fine, but it's not the same thing.
Yes. Hashtag not all. I understand. But yeah, no, this is a problem. And then we talk with people, and they, in this case, a colleague of mine, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, wow, yeah, no, right, I forgot. Trees are a thing." And I'm like, in the Netherlands, we have petrochemical industries in around Rotterdam and etc. They capture the CO2, and with pipes bring that CO2 to glass houses where they grow food and etc. This is what we are already doing. So yeah, we got to limit the CO2 production of, for example, petrochemical plants. Well, okay, we could do that, but then there are also other industries that are going to suffer from that, amongst which food production. People don't think further. And this is the whole thing. I mean, this goes about free speech. This goes about environmentalism. This goes about feminism. This goes about religious freedom. People don't think further.
No.
And
Further than what they want.
That's really a problem. And it wouldn't be that bad of a problem if our politicians aren't actively pushing that. I think that is my biggest gripe on the matter, if that makes sense. It's all quiet now. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But yeah.
No, it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
What, already 11 upvotes?
Woohoo, and there's only 9 people watching.
Only 10 upvotes. Well, people may have gone. And on average, we don't have a lot of views here. So it's always the same people, which makes it more fun, in my humble opinion. But yeah.
Yeah, and you'll find that even on your channel, the algorithms will have dropped. If you go in and check your analytics, it will have dropped about 30% on everything but shares and views from your regulars that you've already got.
Probably.
That's what most people have been finding. So
Well, I've been finding even comments shadow banned and things recently.
Yeah. I never ban comments. I've never banned comments.
No. I'm talking about I posted comments on videos and I've told the person whose video it is, and then they've gone, I can't see your comment.
Yeah, this has happened to me too.
I saw it happen with Clown World, and I fixed the comment up for someone and said, hey, it just wouldn't let you do Clown World. And then he wrote Clown World again and it put it in the thing again. And then just after we fixed up his thing and we'd gone, oh yeah, fair enough, they've banned Clown World, every comment from all my videos that had the word cuck in it ended up in the to be checked section, whatever it's
Can
called.
I just say I hate that word, so I approve.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. But some of those comments were 6 months old, and all of a sudden I had to go and approve them all.
No. But here's the thing: it wasn't that my comment went in to be approved. It literally wasn't visible at all.
Oh gosh!
I've been given mail notifications by YouTube that someone had posted something on my channel, and then I go and check, and it's not there.
Oh,
it's not there. I can't find it. I can't even approve it.
I do make videos. My channel's just gone off track since I've been tied up for sharing a video and being sued.
Oh, in a figurative speech.
You know what annoys me the most is they didn't sue me for something I said or something I did. If they'd sued me for one of my videos because I'd stuffed up a fact or something, then that would make sense to me. But
no, they don't do that. But no. I posted this long comment on one of Alicia's videos, and so I replaced the F in fuck with the Greek letter, and I replaced the Ank in wanker with the Egyptian hieroglyph. Then it showed the comment.
That's a lot of trouble to go through to.
No, it's fun. I like using alternative spellings, if you like.
I like the interesting codes you find in some of the live stream chats where they're trying to use the banned words, but they have to change them around.
Yeah. Especially in super chats.
It's kind of funny because all they're doing is creating new versions of Pig Latin.
Yeah. And they can't keep up with.
Of course they can't.
The kids on the internet, you know. So.
Of course they can't. And that's the funny thing. I can remember, what was it, a few years ago when what's that race baiter from MTV?
You mean that woman?
Yeah.
He
did have his shirt off earlier, Mycroft Holmes.
Not today. Oh yeah, but that was in the pre-stream. Sorry, Anatak. I do apologise. I don't want to.
I just wanted him to be jealous.
I don't want to cause you any trauma.
Indeed, Nick's radio. Akvei Utebei. But I've totally missed the point I was trying to make.
That's good.
Well, actually, that more or less was the point I'm trying to make. But Francesca Ramsey was like, no, well, people complain about how social justice warriors are limiting speech. No, we're creating so many new words. And I'm like,
yeah, sexist ones, like manspreading.
But
I thought sexist terms weren't acceptable.
Well, the new words they are creating are indeed anything but. But yeah, don't point it out. Well, it's like that Monty Python sketch. Don't mention the Germans. Don't mention the war.
That was Faulty Towers.
How, wasn't it?
Faulty Towers.
Yeah, Faulty Towers.
Not Monty Python.
Well,
hey,
everything he does is Monty Python to me.
Hey.
Newspeak. There's the word.
Yeah, funny how Newspeak is kind of lesser.
That's the whole idea. If you can't communicate an idea, it's a bit hard to act on it with others.
Yeah,
Well,
that's indeed the whole idea. I don't want you to silence. I don't want to silence you. I want you to silence yourself.
I only want you to say what I think it's all right to.
in the UK, when being gay was still illegal, there was a sort of like a language gay people had, and the BBC had this comedy. I think it was Round the Horn, and they used a lot of this lingo, and no one actually understood it because it was a secret language, but it sounded funny, because language can sound funny because of its rhythms and so forth. And so they were actually using this gay code to do comedy on the BBC, but no one knew. I just find that a wonderful idea. Now, obviously, now it would be the opposite, because you'd have to use an anti-SJW thing, whereas back then it was the other way around. But you know, times change.
Yeah. It's worrying. But people, considering the time, because it's nearly 2 a.m. and we went slightly over the 2-hour limit once again, which is quite normal for us apparently. Well, the whole idea of the old fart streams was to do about an hour and whatever.
No, silly man.
So and we
managed to have fun until we stop.
That's also true. So we managed that hour marker once. But yeah, so anyway, considering the time, it is time for me to say let's call it quits. People, if you are interested in more of the story of Blair Cottrell, keep an eye on Attack's channel.
Even better, subscribe to her anyway.
Yes,
just for the hell.
I will. I'll post his Gab and stuff, or his solicitor's Facebook up in
it's
my
important to keep
community later.
It's important to keep these stories active around, you know, because it's very easy to have localized things and then you don't see the patterns.
Yeah,
yeah, that is true.
Yes, well now I'm started. Now I've sort of woken up to the whole thing. As I said, it's only been a few years since I got involved in any of this. Too busy working like everyone else before that. It's just it's truly frightening. How did I not know all this stuff was happening? Like
yeah. And Attack, can you just write something in the chat?
Sure.
Well, you can, but there's I put a link.
No, I know, but yes, you did. You did. There you go. Mycroft, go to the right of her chat comment. You'll see 3 vertical dots. Click on that, and you will see an option, go to channel. You can do that for anyone in the chat. That's why I mention it, because this is a general way to access people.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah. But as I said, this is time for me to say, you know what? It's been a good stream. Thank you, Anitag, for coming.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great.
I kind of hope to do this again in a few months, see what's going on.
Yeah, certainly, definitely. We've got a few different. We've got the Falau case, and we've got Blair's case, my case, this other journalist. There's so many at the moment. So
the Falau case is. I mean, that's even more stupid than the whole Blair Cottrell one. Even though the Blair Cottrell one is pretty stupid. Oh, fucking hell!
Well, I think the one for this journalist is even worse. I mean, she's being told she's not allowed to talk about transgender issues because she was found to have defamed a transgender person in the past.
Yeah.
So she's not even allowed to talk about the subject. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like,
And as if the feelings of transgender people are somehow more important than feelings of anybody else. Sorry, but I'm an egalitarian.
more important than someone's desire to, you know, get to the bottom of an issue or come to agreement on an issue. Or
So you're offended, and your point is, in the words
Yeah.
of Stephen Fry.
Well, but that's the thing, though. I mean, people being offended suddenly became an argument.
But only some people being offended.
Yeah, obviously, because when I'm offended, nobody cares.
And that is the problem.
No, I'd admit
people
that.
need to be nicer to Modwing.
Yes. Well, there is that. No, but
I'd lose my whole comedy stick. Come on.
See, that's the sort of stuff I have to deal with.
It is. It is. I am shameless.
Apparently he does all right. He got offended when I called him working class earlier. So
No, that was faux. No, it wasn't that I was offended. What I said was, you call it, I am not entitled. It wasn't offense. It was like, no, I'm not entitled to call myself working class. It was the opposite of offense.
fair enough. Absolute deference to their contribution.
No, I come from the parasitic class, and I understand I come from the parasitic class.
This is a very nice compliment St. Clair gave me. I care when Modwayne is offended. He has an influence on people's minds, after all. And that's a great thing to say. Thank you. I'm not very often offended, though. I do believe that offense is taken and not given.
I have been offended by one thing I was called. And it was done artlessly without any mean to offend, but I was called a progressive, and that offended me.
Yes, I could understand. I wouldn't want to be called a progressive either.
Yeah, I'm lazy. I don't care what people call me.
No, but of all the things I believe, I have never believed in that shit.
Yeah, you know, the thing is, and maybe that's also because of my line of work. I mean, I work in psychiatric healthcare. I might be considered progressive. The thing is, I'm willing to believe I am progressive, but not in the way that people now think what progress is. I mean, if I look at the transgender thing, for fuck's sake, we're normalizing gender dysphoria.
They're normalizing a life of chemical and medical intervention.
Well, no, that I, funny enough, don't care about, because I have MS. My life is also normalized with chemical intervention. So there are, how do you call
But
that?
it wouldn't be if you didn't have medication. Theirs would be if they go to therapy.
Yes, but what I find more interesting is that within psychology, we always say, don't go into the hallucinations, don't go into the brain aneurysm, so to speak. If they believe certain things, don't go into it.
You mean the delusion?
Don't go into the delusion, the hallucinations, all of that.
Yeah.
But somehow with gender dysphoria, we say, but in this case, it's okay.
Yeah.
But makes you think.
With body dysphoria, no, don't go into it. No.
We know that it's got a higher suicide rate, but we'll encourage you to take that route anyway.
We'll encourage you to make yourself infertile. We'll encourage you to ruin your lives and make you really upset and regret what you've done now in 10 years' time, because.
Well, but that's another thing. I won't say most people regret. And there are actually people who will say, well, yeah, but the gender dysphoria thing, the transgender thing, well, it's basically the same as the gay people in around the mid of the century, or the mid of the last century. And I'm like, how?
How?
Well,
yeah,
I mean, gay people were committing suicide more often than non-gay people in that period of time, because they felt society couldn't cope with them, which is only partly true. But even if we say it's 100% true, the suicide among gay people plummeted as fast as exception in society rose.
Hmm.
What we see with gender dysphoria is that the suicide rate isn't plummeting. It's actually stagnating. In percentages, it's stagnating. In raw numbers, it's growing.
Yes.
Of course, it's growing because
There are more gender dysphoric people out there.
no, because there are more people who aren't gender dysphoric, but are being treated through hormones, which is irreversibly affecting them.
Well, that is a problem too. But gender dysphoria is actually there are psychological ailments that are contagious, and gender dysphoria is one of them.
I'm friends with a lady who runs an Australian group for what does she call it? ROGD, Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria. It's a group for parents whose kids have suddenly been diagnosed as trans.
Yeah. But can you imagine that's actually
for various reasons? Some of them know their kids have been traumatized through various things, and they've tried to
Like
say,
going
"Can we
to
please
school?
go through cycle?" No, like one of them was raped and things like that.
Sorry, I was just
No. But instead, the parents have been trying to push for them to actually get psychological help. Get some therapy and stuff to deal with that issue. They've actually been called abusive, and had the trans activists step in. And the child doesn't get to see a psychologist. The child gets put on blockers, and it's happening more and more here now. Like before, we used to go, "Oh no, Canada! Oh no, certain states in the US." But
well, Victoria was pretty strong with their safe school concept as well. I mean, as soon as they started with that one, I already knew where that would go.
Yep, and it's all through the education system now. That one's written into the curriculum. If they want to teach it, they can. And so many of our teachers are activists.
You need more Muslims because they're the only ones who are resisting this.
They haven't been standing up to it though here. No, not very many of them. One, because our government won't push things into their schools, unlike the way they're attacking Christian schools. And there's also still a bit of a funny political thing where they're trying not to get people on offside because they're religion of peace.
But in all fairness, though, I can't remember for sure, but wasn't one of the writers in the Safe School programs, wasn't he a convicted paedophile himself?
One of the administrators of the section that wrote the program and one of its big supporters who actually convinced the government to run the program, Gary Dowsett, is a pedophile apologist and pro-pedophile speaker, I guess you'd say. Back in the 80s, he did a thing called Boiled Lollies and Band-Aids that was sort of comparing a pedophile's affection for a child to a mother's connection to her child.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And more recently, in a talk he was giving about AIDS and stuff, he was asking why they've given up the fight on certain things and given up questioning, whether or not we need an age of consent, this, that, and the other. So, yeah.
I think we do need an age of consent. We have an age of consent. It's a pretty good age of consent.
Yep. So he doesn't think we do, though.
No. Well, people are entitled to think what they want, and we're entitled to have...
To tell them they're not allowed.
What's the word?
No, we're
contempt.
No, we're not allowed to have content because that's the
illegal.
whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're not far off that.
So what you're saying is, if I
can I point something out? Do you have any kids? Do either of you have kids that are small?
I have a
Wayne house.
The really worrying thing about this trans thing, and I'm sure they're doing the same thing over there, is they're saying children can be mature minors and they can get medical assistance without their parents' knowledge. They have a right to privacy from their parents if they feel it's necessary.
As I said,
a 12-year-old can go and be put through the whole process of going on blockers or what have you without their parents knowing. A 12 or 13-year-old can go and get an abortion through the school and whatnot without their parents knowing.
Well,
and the government themselves lock parents out of the kids' medical records from the day they turn 14.
Yes, well, I haven't had any cases like that. Theoretically speaking, that sort of stuff can happen here, but legally speaking, it's not allowed.
Well, here it is legally allowed.
Yeah, strange how that goes. Anyway,
A 16-year-old can get an over-the-phone abortion here.
over the phone abortion.
Yeah, no joke. Up to 8 weeks, you can ring up and get an abortion.
Fuck.
They send you the medicine through the mail.
That's.
No, it's
Anyway,
the whole system is rather disgusting.
We're further down the hill than a lot of people realise. So
yes.
Oh, I know.
So this is kind of what I wanted to do with my YouTube channel as well. To anyway, I'm not going to keep talking. I'm going to say
that's
goodbye.
all right. I need to go and have a nap before I go for a meet.
Any attack? What did you want to? Do you have any famous last words?
No, I always just say thanks for listening. That's my end.
And her link to her channel is downstairs. It's in the blah blah text. So go over there, look at her stuff, subscribe. She is a far bigger YouTuber than I am, so support her because that way YouTube can't piss her off that easily.
They're all just trolls that are on my channel. They don't actually come in to watch my videos. They only came in because of my activism against safe schools, and I haven't been able to do that for a while, so they don't come and watch my videos.
That's too bad. I have 600 subscribers on YouTube, and my videos average 20 views.
Yeah.
So there is that. Anyway, John, any last words?
No.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, On Attack, once again. It was a great pleasure to have you here.
No worries. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's an important topic. So, yeah, thanks for helping us learn a little bit more about it. And Mycroft, St. Clair, all the other people who were here, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming. And I hope to see you.